Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Haas.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Niche Pursuits Podcast. On the show today, I have Sam from FinancialSamurai.com. Sam worked in finance for 13 years and received his MBA from UC Berkeley. And by the age of 28, Sam had done a lot of investing and found that he was doing quite well. And through continued investing and saving, he was able to engineer his layoff in 2012 at the age of 35. Sam now runs a successful and extremely educational personal finance blog at FinancialSamurai.com and has also started the personal finance network, Yakizi.com. Today, I just want to figure out why he's been so successful. So, Sam, welcome to the show.
Hey, Spencer, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. You kind of got on my radar as I read some of your posts on your blog, and I know that you interacted a little bit on my blog as well, and I was intrigued with what I saw. So we're going to dig into your story here a little bit and figure out why you've been successful. So first, maybe you can just tell us about your background a little bit. What were you doing before you created your site?
Sure. As you mentioned, I worked in finance, basically on Wall Street for 13 years. I started my career at Goldman Sachs in New York City in the equities department. So it was a crazy time back in 1999 and 2000. You know, the markets were on fire. It's the dot-com mania. Everybody was getting rich. And I was able to get, a couple years of that flavor, and which was great. It was really exciting times. And I love New York City. But after a couple years and, like 15 to 20 pounds later and all these allergies and, like foot injuries, like it was weird. I decided, maybe there's a better lifestyle somewhere else. And I was getting in at about 5:30 a.m. every morning and leaving, 7:30, 8, 9:30 every night for probably a year and a half. And I said, you know what? There has to be a better way. And so, I was talking to a fellow colleague who was speaking to a headhunter, and there was another opportunity at a competing firm in San Francisco. And so I spoke to those guys, and after about a couple months, I decided, you know what? I love New York City, but I think if I stayed there for any longer, I'd probably die. And so I got out. And so I was at my new firm in San Francisco for 11 years.
Okay.
Until 2012, when I decided, hey, maybe there's something else again. And I lasted, I would say, 8 years longer than I thought I would last on Wall Street.
Yeah, so it's obviously you were putting in a ton of hours. We can assume that the money was quite good as well. With you being in the position that you were and the hours that you were putting in. But what made you decide that you wanted to create FinancialSamurai.com? What was the motivation there?
Sure. So, part of the reason why I started aggressively saving since day one was because I was getting my ass kicked so hard on Wall Street that I knew I couldn't survive for very long. And so I needed to save a lot of money so I could leave and not have to work so long, right? Kind of makes sense. But at the same time, I was getting tugged and pulled by, the things that money does to people, especially a new guy out of college. So, I bought a car, I bought a motorbike, I went out clubbing, went to Vegas, all that stuff. And then I realized sooner or later, I was like, it's enough, but I need to really kind of look at the longer term picture. And so after about a year, I started saving about 50% of my after-tax income every single year. And, 9/11 happened in 2001, and it was really emotional for all of us in the industry. And I was living just blocks away when it happened, and I was at a Windows of the World Latin America conference just like 3 months before that happened, or maybe 4 or 5 months. And so it kind of really shook me to the core and maybe try to think what else is out there. But it wasn't until 2012, right, until I left. And in 2008 and 2009, as I think most people know who've been working for, I guess, at least 5, 6, 7, 10 years, is that, the world was coming to an end. I did everything that I thought was right. I saved the majority of my income. I invested in real estate. I invested in stocks, some CDs, and some private equity companies. Just really kind of a diversified net worth picture. And in 2008, Bear Stearns went under, and then Lehman Brothers went under. My friends started getting let go left and right, and it got worse in the first half of 2009. And so I lost probably around 35% of my net worth in a matter of, 6 months to a year. That took, at then, what is that, 10 years to build. And so it was really depressing for me, right? It was like, I remember the first decent bonus I got, I wasn't making a lot. And my colleague, who was a director at that time, said, "Hey, Sam, don't feel so bad that your bonus was like half of what you expected, because you don't make that much in the first place." And it was kind of a slap in the face. I was like,
right.
Yeah, that sucks. And then, fast forward to 2008, 2009, and when I had a sizable financial nut, just getting crushed, I was like, wow, now I understand what he meant.
Yeah, that hurts.
And so I thought, well, my dad had actually told me about blogging in 2007, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
This is after I finished business school, and he's like, "Yeah, you should try this blogging thing, because I think some people are making some good money from advertising." I was like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Forget it. I'm too busy. It was a bull market in 2007. I was traveling, working a lot." And then in 2009, when everything came crashing down, suddenly I had much more time, and I was also sad. I was feeling sorry for myself for losing so much, even though I thought I was doing the right thing. So I started Financial Samurai in the summer of 2009 as a cathartic way to deal with my issues, my financial issues. And I found that every single word I typed made me feel a little bit better. And as soon as I started reaching out to other people and listening to their stories about financial difficulties, I felt like I wasn't alone. And it became kind of a support network for myself and for others to survive the downturn and come out a little bit better than we had hoped.
Awesome. No, that totally makes sense as far as the reasons why you created the site. It's good to hear your background too, that sort of led to the decision making there. I want to jump into, in just a minute, the success of the site and what's happened to the site, but I do want to continue to sort of narrow in on some of the financial planning and financial aspects of both yourself and the things that you teach on your blog, because that is the core of what you do there. What is your definition of retirement?
My definition of retirement is basically not having to work for anybody and doing whatever you want whenever you want. It's pretty straightforward, I think.
Mm-hmm. And in your financial plan, is that the ability to do that? Is that going to be based on investing and saving? Is that primarily what you're looking at?
Definitely. I think if you look through my archives, you'll see a number of posts such as achieving financial freedom one income slice at a time, or the average net worth for the above average person, and how much should I have saved by a certain amount age, and so forth. The idea is to not only save, because I think anybody knows how to save, but it's to mobilize your savings to NPV positive investments that'll bring a return above and beyond the rate of inflation.
Right.
So it takes a long, long time, especially now that interest rates are so low. I mean, finally, the 10-year bond yield has risen to about 2.85% from 1.4% in 2012. I mean, that's a huge move that is crushing bonds right now. And I think people have to watch out. but rates are so low that, to get a risk-free rate of return, even $1 million to get a risk-free rate of return at 2.8%, that's only, $28,000, right? So you need $1 million to get 28,000 a year risk-free. So the idea is on my site to talk about, the pillars of alternative investments that I think many people can partake in. And, one is real estate. I think real estate is the best asset class because one, it's tangible, two, it provides utility, and three, it's a key part of inflation. What is the definition of inflation but things that are rising in value? So, a home is generally the most important or largest asset that many people own or could own. And so it's important, I think, to be on the right side of inflation where your assets are inflating and not forever be a price taker where you're at the mercy of inflation. So I talk a lot about real estate investing and building relatively passive income streams through rental properties.
Mm-hmm.
And then I talk a lot about stock market investing because that's what I did for 13 years. And the idea is to think about risk and reward. Always think about risk and risk control, but delving into dividend stocks and also into growth stocks. And the other pillar is to really, source your investments to relatively risk-free investments so that when 2008, 2009 happens again, at least you'll have something there that is stable, right? So, CDs and so forth.
Right.
But so the idea is to build a large enough financial nut that will create a large enough passive income stream or alternative income stream so that it can at least cover your expenses. And if it can't cover your expenses, at least it'll, I would say, decrease the amount of work you need to do or increase the amount of options that you have to do what you really want. So if you needed to survive off an $80,000 a year job, and suddenly your passive income is generating, $40,000, you can now look at many more jobs that just pay you $40,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're more fun, maybe they're less stressful, so that you have more options. Because at the end of the day, it's about creating options for your life.
Definitely. So, in addition, I want you to maybe, you mentioned that you decided to start the site and then you quit your job in 2012. What take us through that journey to actually quitting your job? How did you make it happen? Was it a decision based on, well, I'm already making enough from my
Right.
side ventures that I can quit, or was it something where you just knew that you'd be able to make enough to sustain yourself?
Sure. So 2009, the site was started. Basically made nothing from the site for the first 6 months. Inquiries started trickling in after 6 months. And then after about maybe 2 years, I thought, oh, there's actually, enough money to eat some ramen noodles,
Right.
This might be something. I never thought the site would be something that would generate a livable income. The site sole purpose was to help me get over the financial misery I was experiencing in 2009 and
Right.
2008. And it was just so fun to read other people's sites and to comment and to build relationships. That was really the essence of the site. And I hope the readers who've been around for the past 4 years kind of see that. I basically write everything on my site. There's no ghostwriters. There's very few guest posts
Mm-hmm.
or reviews on products. It's just me just writing and talking about things. So, in 2009 and 2010, if you worked in finance, you were the enemy of the public.
Sure. Yeah.
It didn't matter whether you were a Latin American equity salesman. You were the enemy in America for the housing crisis. It didn't matter if you were if you were in the private equity arm trying to raise money for underprivileged communities in emerging markets, you were also the bad person, right? With the Occupy Wall Street movement
Right.
and so forth. It didn't matter, right? That at the end of the day, it's the person who signs the contract who needs to read the contract and who should take ownership of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about blaming someone else. So I realized there was that big turn in public sentiment towards Wall Street and finance in general.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't feel good. I was like, well, why am I the bad guy?
Right.
I got crushed just like everybody else. Maybe I got crushed more because I had more relatively. And so I didn't feel good about the industry anymore. I felt great when I first started in '99 as, a young guy. I was like, oh, this is great, investment banking, stock trading, all that stuff, help, grease the wheels of capitalism. But as the tide turned, I didn't feel too good. But I started feeling good writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt good writing online, and I started feeling worse working in finance. And so that basically started things in motion for me to think, well, everything's pretty rational, and I want to do things that make me feel good. So let me try to do more of the online stuff and maybe less of the offline stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2011, so two and a half years after I started the site, I was in Santorini in Greece, and my friends and I were checking out the place for like 3 hours, and then I finally found this bar at the top of Santorini, overlooking the crater, and the bar had Wi-Fi. I had my iPhone, and in came an email from a client in London saying, "Hey, Sam, I want to do an advertisement with you." I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, I'm in Santorini, so I guess we're kind of in the similar time zone." And he sent me a code, and and then he PayPal'd me like, I don't know, $1,200 or something like that.
Nice.
And at that point, I was like drinking like a €6 Mykonos beer. I was like, oh, this is such a lot of money for a beer. And then as soon as he sent the funds, I said, oh, hey, waiter, give me another €6 Mykonos beer.
Started feeling good. Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe it. It was like, this took like maybe 35 minutes,
Right.
to hammer down the deal, to put the code up. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. And so this was like October 2011, and I said, wow, maybe I could do this full time. I can't believe it. And and so that was when I really started thinking, how can I make an exit, a graceful exit, and hopefully a profitable exit from my firm of 11 years? Because to give up a steady six-figure income after 13 years is kind of scary, I would think, for anybody. And so the wheels started turning, and basically I figured out how to negotiate a severance package that essentially bought me about 5 to 6 more years of living expenses. And
Nice.
so I wrote a book about it. It's like a 100-page book on the steps to do so. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And so I figured, you know what? If I've got this many years saved up, and I can engineer my layoff and get a severance package with my deferred compensation and so forth, I gotta take the leap of faith. And so that's what I did in the spring of 2012.
That's got to feel good.
Oh, it's great. And the one thing, if people can take away one thing from my site in the on the career section, is to never quit if you don't have to, but
Mm-hmm.
figure out a way to get laid off. I think there's like a misnomer on firing and getting laid off. Most people don't get fired because getting fired is due to cause,
Mm-hmm.
but getting laid off is not because of you. It's because of them, or because of restructuring or closing down a business or whatnot. And I
Mm-hmm.
just want people to know that employees have much more rights than they know. It's like David versus Goliath. You think, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to quit. That's kind of the easy way out, But because you've got to like go against human resources, the legal department, your manager, and all that. It's like it's easier to quit. But I really want to encourage people not to quit, to read their guidebook, and to think, how can they make a win-win situation so they can leave with a nice severance and healthcare Cobra, and other opportunities that they could provide, or they can have a runway to do whatever else they want to do.
That's some great advice for sure. I now want to dig a little bit into the success of financialsamurai.com specifically. First, are you willing to share how many visitors the site gets each day?
The site. I think the site is plateauing now as it's summertime in 2013,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to figure out. And I've got actually some ideas on how to get it up and going again. But the visitors, it's about 6 to 10,000 unique visitors a day. So
Nice.
yeah, so it kind of ebbs and flows. Like I'm still learning about cyclical seasonal traffic,
Mm-hmm.
once you've reached kind of a steady state.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean, mm-hmm.
yeah. So it
Yeah,
seems like it really kind of fades in the summer as, people go on vacation. I was on vacation for 4 weeks, and I'm still going to go on vacation for another couple of weeks before Labor Day. And I think it bounces back in September, and then really kind of gets hot during the New Year and tax time,
right. That makes
like
sense.
New Year's resolutions and all that. And it's pretty good. And then I think just June, July, August is generally quiet. But yeah,
Yeah,
it was a
no,
good step up function from when I first left my job in the spring of 2012, when it was maybe only like, I don't know, 2 to 3,000 a day or something like that.
yeah, no. I mean, that's a great site. Tons of traffic there, and in particular, I mean, in the sort of personal finance niche that you're in, that's valuable traffic as well. I don't know if you are going to be willing to tell us how much the site makes. I know people listening want me to ask the question. Can you give us a rough idea of the type of revenue the site's generating?
Um, I actually don't talk about anything regarding my site on
Okay.
on financialsamurai.com. It's totally about alternative investments, because my community is not about making money online.
Hmm.
But that's something that I'll talk about maybe more in 2014, as it becomes more of a um, portion of, I guess, my net worth and relative income streams. But what I can say is that there is more money out there in general than anybody can ever imagine. And I really believe, from the downturn and from, a lot of the protesters and all that, that there's against wealth and people who make over X amount, like, let's go tax people who makes over X and all that good stuff. I don't want to get into politics. But I think what has happened since 2008 and 2009 is that there's been a growing underground of stealth wealth, of people who make way more than you ever thought possible, who look like the normal Joe and Jane. They just kind of walk around in shorts and t-shirt and flip-flops, and you have no idea.
Yep, I totally agree.
And I think that's it's I mean, I'm old school in the way I think about money, and that I try to really downplay anything that I have or make. And I'm also aware that, I grew up in third world countries and overseas for 14 years, and there's a lot of poverty out there. And at the same time, I recognize that just being able to work and grow up in the United States is such an opportunity that, literally billions of people don't have. And we gotta seize everything we we have right here. Um, so in terms of income, I would say it's between $0 and $1 billion.
Man, that's so exact. That's great. Um, no, and I sort of knew going in that you weren't going to give us any exact numbers, and
I mean,
that's
so Spencer, tell me, how come you don't talk about your income?
probably a lot of the same reasons that you don't. Share very little about the income that I make. I've shared some on a couple of sites that I've made, but those are sort of one piece of my portfolio.
And the other thing is, what was I going to say? Financialsamurai.com, I'm very sensitive about this, is not a site about making money online.
Totally.
Like that's like this like the last thing I ever wanted. Right? Remember, it was born from agony and grief and depression during the financial crisis. And it's there to talk about different perspectives and ideas and to learn from our mistakes and to figure out how to build wealth. Because most people
Right.
coming to my site, I would say like 99%, it's not about how do I make money online. And
Sure.
I really don't want to be um, that guy who makes money based on making money online, right? So I
Right.
wanted to tell a story of how I was able to reach my financial level.
Yeah, and
And,
and I'm not implying that your site is about that. I've interviewed business owners from all walks of life. Landscapers. Have
or,
interviewed somebody that runs a site that talks about stars in the universe,
right.
and they've been able to share uh, bits of their income, and it's interesting to my audience because they are website creators. But definitely, your site is not about for people listening out there, don't go to Financial Samurai if you're expecting to learn about how to make money online or build a blog or
Right.
rank in the search engines.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that sort of thing because that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Right.
But can you tell us maybe where the traffic is coming from Financial Samurai in and specifically how much is coming from search engines?
Sure. I would say about 75, it's like 70 to 82% of traffic comes from search,
Okay,
which
nice.
is, I don't know what the relative good bad ratios are, but to me, I guess the cons are, well, if search doesn't like my site, then a larger, my site will get hit in terms of traffic.
Right.
The pro is that because the search engines like my site, it's a passive stream of visitors that can be more profitable than regular visitors because I think everybody knows from the on making money online niche that it's the search traffic who are your most lucrative visitors who actually are looking for a problem, trying to find an answer, and if you can tell them the answers or at least your perspective and then have an actionable item at the bottom, that's how you can make money.
Definitely. And so you are getting a lot of traffic from Google, from search engines, which is awesome. How are you doing that? Are you doing a lot of keyword research to specifically know what people are searching for? Tell us about your strategy for producing content that is search engine friendly.
I was a very negative proponent or just an unbeliever of SEO for the first 2 years, right? So from 2009 to 2011. I didn't check my Google Analytics for like maybe 3 months at a time
Mm-hmm.
for the first year at least. And then maybe it was more like once a quarter in the second year. And then so now I check it like once a week. And so what happened, I've noticed is that, well, one, I didn't know, it's too much about SEO in the beginning. So therefore I didn't do much.
Okay.
Two, there's a simple, Yoast plugin, or there's all these SEO plugins that are automatically installed in your WordPress.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's obviously title, description, keywords. And I actually didn't fill any of that out for the first 2 years because I was lazy and I didn't care. And then so when traffic started growing without doing any SEO, and when I started, being more mature in my blogging life, I noticed people doing SEO things that I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I started filling out the plugin information, the basics, right?
Right.
And I have never once done a keyword research. Never once in
Okay.
4+ years. What I have done is I've tried to think logically about what someone would search for. Because a lot of the posts I write are um, I'm actually trying to answer and get over my own uh, unsureness of things. For example, the dark side of early retirement. So I wrote that post, I think in 2010 or something, and it basically highlights all the negatives about early retirement. You know, you don't nobody retires from a job they love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you must have a crappy job, or what if you run out of money, or what if nobody respects you anymore, stuff like that. Um, So the dark side of early retirement, is not really a keyword friendly SEO kind of like, I would probably write, it was probably better to write, what are the risks of retiring early? Then that might be more logical. But that post itself generates like tens of thousands of, recurring visits every single year and is a profitable post. So what I try to this, so the strategy is simple. It's to think logically about what it is that people would search for and put it as your title. Even though it could be a boring title, I think the pros outweigh the cons of having a boring title. Two is to maybe do a mismatch of, say, have a boring title but a more interesting URL. So the title can be what are the downsides of retiring early, and the URL might be, you know, early retirement is going to make you go crazy or something like that. So you kind of have like this double density of keywords maybe. And then finally, I think it's just to not worry so much about the keywords, and it's to not worry about keyword density and all this stuff, because you don't really know if there's 100 variables in the Google search algorithms. How the hell are you going to figure out what it is that's going to make your site make your post wonderful? I mean, everybody in the SEO niche has seen posts that, like, really thin posts that rank much higher than really meaty posts. And they're like, well, how does that work? We don't know. It's hard to figure out. So I would encourage people, and I know you have this product which sounds great, and I'm sure other people find it very helpful.
Right.
I just encourage maybe the beginners, I guess, maybe the people in the first 2 years of their career, to really focus on just the content and logical words in their titles and descriptions, and let the rest take its course. Because if I had bogged down on all the SEO stuff for the first couple of years, I don't think I would have survived. I think I would have been maybe depressed. I would have been like, well, I did every single thing that an SEO person recommends me to do, and I'm still only getting 100 visits a day or something.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, those are some great points. And I mean, there's no problem. I have a slightly different perspective, but it actually is very similar when you boil it down to sort of what you're saying here. I mean, you're not using tools to go out and find what people are searching for, or things like that, but you are thinking about your market, because, I mean, really you're writing this almost for yourself, as it's
Well, that's the
therapeutic.
thing.
And so you're
Yeah.
inside your own head, which is really your target market. And so the questions that people are asking, what's interesting, or things you have questions about. And I think that's really just the key to keyword research, is knowing what the market is interested in, knowing what the market might be searching for. So yeah, a slightly different approach, if you will, but it's very natural, and obviously it's working for you.
Well, is that the crux of the argument, Spencer? Because to do keyword research is to find what people are searching for and then writing about it. My stance is, I'm trying to figure out how to solve a problem in my head, which
Yeah.
I know other people have,
Hmm.
and then write about it. And then if it so happens that people are searching for it, great. If not, well, at least I have a little community that'll help me figure out my problems.
Yeah, I mean, and I do the same, to be honest. On my blog over at nichepursuits.com, everything I write isn't something that I first, found using some keyword tool. It's something that either I write about because it's interesting, or somebody had a question on. So I guess there's just two ways of doing it. You can do both. You can do one or the other, or neither. I think it's just a great point for people listening, that they can sort of decide how they want to do it.
I think the other thing is to say that I'm pretty technically unsavvy, and I'm pretty lazy as well. So because I'm unsavvy and I'm lazy, I don't have that effort and energy to do that keyword research and all that SEO stuff.
Hmm.
That's probably the reason why for the first year and a half I didn't fill out the SEO plugin stuff at the end of each post. Because I just, writing does take a lot of energy, but I think I can write a lot. But the energy I want to spend is just on the writing. And I'm just kind of, and I think I was maybe naive to think that if I write interesting things that I would do well. And it's kind of like in the workforce, I think there's a lot of naivety where people think if they do well at their job, they're going to get promoted and paid. Whereas I talk about on my site, it's really those who spend 50% of their time selling themselves externally and then 50% of their time selling themselves internally are the ones who really get paid and promoted. So maybe if I had done more SEO stuff and focused more of my time, I would have done better. But I don't know.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more to SEO. Obviously, we're talking about sort of the on-page, the content, things that you've done there. But then there's the link building, as we call. But my guess is I know the answer to this. But do you build links to your site?
I don't build links to my site. I don't know, like, I didn't even know about building links until maybe early 2012.
Hmm.
And the reason why I started really paying attention to SEO and link building and all that stuff is because Google was just crushing sites left and right. Like Google had the Penguin update in 2011 that just crushed a lot of sites.
Hmm.
And then I saw it again in 2012, and I was like, "Wow, what is going on?" I mean, I have like no idea what's going on. So I started reading your site and other sites, AdSense Flippers, all these cool sites that focus on online marketing, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting on things to do and what not to do." Frankly,
Hmm.
because I think ignorance is bliss online, and I was pretty relatively ignorant because I was just focusing on content. But I think it's important to kind of get your idea of what's going on. And I don't know, I don't even know how to link build. Like, so I know there's guest posts. You can write guest posts. I don't do a lot of guest posts at all because when I first started in 2009, I got rejected by my first inquiry, and I got rejected by my first Carnival submission. So I have never submitted my site to a Carnival once.
So you're not, obviously, I sort of suspected that you're not out, manually or doing anything to try and get links. But as I look at your backlink profile, you have tons of really awesome links. So where are they coming from? Is it from you interacting in the community? Tell us about why you think you have so many links.
Well, if you could tell me what is my backlink profile and how do you see it, that'd be great because I actually don't really know.
Yeah. So you
What are you looking at?
there's lots of tools. I go to
Oh,
opensiteexplorer.org,
oh,
and it'll pull up all the links that are pointing to your site.
like what is it and what is good and what is not so good? Like since everything's relative.
Yeah, well, let me
Let's see.
take a look here. It all depends on the age of the site and things like that, but
Yeah.
your site has thousands of links pointing to it. Total links 39,000. You have some high value links, either from, I'm assuming, people just mentioning you from their blogs.
All right.
So I guess rather than worrying about how many links is good or bad,
Okay.
that's something that people can dig into. I'm looking at it. You have a lot of links, and it's good. Your page is very authoritative based on the page authority that I see here in
Well,
Site Explorer, things like that. Are you doing much outreach then to other bloggers? You say you're not doing any guest posting.
well, I think, first of all, I'm a fan of blogging first and foremost. So if I didn't have my site, I would just be reading a lot of other sites and commenting because I enjoy the interaction and the different perspectives.
Hmm.
And I like to play devil's advocate and argue the other side just to make sure I see both sides.
Yeah, and that is a lot of what I see actually. A lot of comment links. It looks like as I just scroll through here quickly.
Yeah, so I read a lot of stuff because I love to read and I love to learn about other people.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think I do comment on a lot of sites, and I don't want to be that guy who becomes like a big blogger and never interacts with anybody else ever again.
Right.
So it's always been kind of natural as a core to just read sites, comment, interact, because I know how long it takes people to write, because I write a lot myself, and I know how good it feels when someone leaves a comment highlighting little nuances in your post, and it feels good. And it's all about relationships at the end of the day, you know. So I think that's the number one thing I do. I comment on other sites because I like to read a lot of other sites. If you want to tell me how to link build other ways, that'd be great. But I don't really know how. I mean,
No,
you know,
that's great. I mean, I'm not saying that it's essential. Obviously, you're doing quite well. I'm not here to say that there should be something else that you're doing. Obviously it's working, and there's lots of links either naturally pointing to your site, or it's links from comments that you've made. And so yeah, I think you should be happy with the way things are going.
yeah, I think it's okay. I mean, I don't. That's the thing. I don't really know what's a good amount of links or whatnot. I mean, at the end of the day, everything's relative, right? So
Sure.
I don't. What I do know is, my traffic, the revenue. I have some revenue targets that would be nice. And also, I started the Yakezi network,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, I think, now the largest interactive personal finance blog network on the web. And it's not that big, it's about 100 members.
Okay.
And anybody can join the challenge to become a Yakezi member. And it's a 6-month challenge where you're trying to get to below a 200,000 rank on Alexa. And we chose Alexa because it's for historical reasons, but it's also the most dynamic and changing ranking that you can see progress every day to every other day.
Okay.
And it's for anybody who's willing to post 2 to 4 times a week at least for 6 months and get to know at least 30 other bloggers in the niche.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I write on yakezi.com,
Right.
which has a good amount of link backs and outgoing links because that's my network.
Mm-hmm.
And so that probably helps some of my articles on financialsamurai.com. But other than that, that's it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like you're really just focusing on quality content, things that are both important to you and your readers, your community. And I mean, I do have to say that the articles I've read, they're excellent. Well done there. They're interesting. They're educational. I read the blog and enjoy it. So the content really is great. And then other than that, you are interacting with the community quite a bit. You're reading other financial blogs and commenting, and of course you have the network you created. And so it sounds like, I mean, that's sort of all that you're doing as far as promotion. Is there any other promotional efforts that you're doing to sort of spread the word for your site?
Oh no. I think, maybe in 2014 and beyond, maybe I'll be even more open with some of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do have friends in the media industry, the mass media industry, which maybe I'll do like a online, just on the air interview,
Okay.
talking about Silicon Valley and Wall Street and the changes. So I think that's something for 2014. I think the one thing I recommend is for everybody to just kind of stick with it. A lot of people burn out after a while, and the one thing that kept me going was not just the fun and the interaction, but to say, if you can speak forever, you can write forever. So that's what I've told myself all this time. Maybe when I'm just tired, I don't want to write. If I'm speaking, I can write. So maybe I'll do a little less speaking, a little bit more writing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can stick with it, good things will happen. Like, someone will pick something out of your site. I remember the LA Times, Kathy Christoph picked out something on an article I wrote on get an umbrella policy because your teenager will bankrupt you.
Uh-huh.
And that was like the first large media mention because I was driving through this tunnel and, like this teenager like sideswiped me and, he's flicking me off and all. It was like crazy. I was like, dude, you're going to kill your parents. Financially, at least,
Right.
if that happens. And then so, like, I had the LA Times article, and more people say, "Hey, what's this?" And then other reporters said, "Oh, who's this?" And they check out the site and say, "Oh, maybe I'll interview her for this and
Mm-hmm.
that." And things just kind of snowball. And it's like a virtuous cycle. And then pretty soon, maybe you're on Forbes, Bloomberg, Kiplinger, whatever, and it just goes. But you just have to stick with it. And I talk about the X factor on my site a lot, which is something where you enjoy doing. The appearance of revenue is not there yet, but if you just keep on doing it, you don't know. It might turn into something huge and potentially life-changing. So,
yeah, no, that's some great advice for anybody out there that's wanting to create their own blog or their own site. The importance of sticking with it. If it's something that you enjoy, stick with that, and success will follow. Ideally, so. I'm going to wrap up the interview here. Do you have any sort of last parting words of wisdom or anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to mention?
I think I mentioned this at the Financial Bloggers Conference I went to in Denver in 2012, and that is I'm very, very bullish on blogging. And the reason being is because media is being consumed more from individuals who have an opinion and who have individual authority. So take, for example, what you read from the mass media, even like the New York Times, which is an awesome paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
The article is probably written by a journalist whose expertise is in journalism,
Right.
reporting a story, being unbiased, highlighting all the facts, and never ever once responding to a comment.
Right.
That's fine, but what if you could read an article, let's say, on investing by someone who spent his or her career investing and who did relatively well, who taught you some stuff, who provided the news, and then who responded to your comments and inquiries in the follow-up. I mean, that's a much more dynamic way of consuming the news and understanding. There's never really going to be like the absolute right or wrong way in finances. It's always personal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can build your brand online, you can continuously interact with your readers and produce good content and build your authority based hopefully on what you know and not pontification on what you think you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a lot of articles, let's say online, about how do I retire with $1 million?
Mm-hmm.
And the author, maybe makes 70 grand and has $100,000 net worth and is 32 years old, right?
Right.
Like, how do you come to grips with believing in that person if they are not there themselves? So I think everybody who's thinking about blogging or wants to blog or is blogging right now really has to take ownership of what they do know and really try to amplify that with consistency and through their own marketing channels, and to really build their presence. Because the search engines, I guess, and I think most people will see more credibility for a site that's older than younger, right? A 10-year-old site is more credible than a 2-year-old site.
Right.
Vice versa. So if you're thinking about blogging professionally or full-time or quitting your job to do something online, definitely go for it. It took me 3 years of working after work and on the weekends, and I probably spent about 20 to 25 hours a week for 3 years before I said, you know what, I'm going to take the leap of faith. But I'm so certain that if people can just stay consistent, continuously build their brand and their content, they're going to make more than they ever thought possible. I don't know what it is, but I think it's through my own experience and through what I see other people do. So don't sell yourself short, and I think really try to believe in yourself. That after 3 years, after 5 years, if someone said, hey, you know what, you can make more online than you could working after 5 years, though, I think people would say, okay, I'm going to give it a go.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's some great advice. I agree 100%. I'm very bullish on blogging as well. I review a lot of success stories, including people like you, and it's amazing to see what people are doing, not only what they're earning, but the audience that they're building, the brand that they're building, and really building a foundation for long-term success. So I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your words of wisdom with us. What's the best place where people can follow along with what you're doing or stay in touch with you?
Oh, you can just go to financialsamurai.com. And then on the top right, you can see RSS, the email feed, and the Twitter. I'm at Financial Samurai without the I because I ran out of space. See, that's how technically unsavvy I am, like when I first started. But yeah, just come on by. The whole idea is that we really try to accept all different types of perspectives. Whatever religion, race, creed, sexuality, it's really open. And what I encourage people to do is to share their perspective. And if it's in disagreement, to be respectful and highlight why they think the way they do so everybody can learn from each other. And there's also a new forum that I started, which people can get more deep into as well.
Okay, perfect. So financialsamurai.com. Sam, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks a lot, Spencer.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you. Bye-bye.